CIJA, Canadian Jewish Views. On this show, we talk to and about Canada's Jewish community. Today, Roman Bauber, MPP for York-Centre, reflects on why it's so important that Ontario recently adopted the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of antisemitism, what it means to him as a policymaker and champion of this effort at Queen's Park, and what it means to him as a proud member of Ontario's Jewish community.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Roman Bauber and I'm the Member of Provincial Parliament for the riding of York-Centre. Ontario is home to almost 230,000 people of the Jewish faith. And while we're blessed to live in the most welcoming and racially diverse country in the world, we know that antisemitism is in the rise. And in fact, the Jewish community remains the most targeted community for hate crimes by any measure. And in the last few years, we've witnessed an alarming increase in the number of viciousness and the evil that is antisemitism. I often say that antisemitism is not limited to Twitter or graffiti. It grows through apathy. It grows through chilling governments. But I'm very, very proud that the government of Ontario took this issue very seriously. I was fortunate to participate in the Ontario government's adoption of the IHRA definition of antisemitism, because the only way to keep this evil in check is to call it out and fight it. And on Monday, October the 26th, 2020, Ontario governments adopted the working definition of antisemitism as adopted by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA plenary on May 26, 2016. We drew a line in the sand and took a very big step against antisemitism by calling it what it is. We defined it. We made the definition explicit so no one can miss it. And why? Because we refuse to accept it. Defining antisemitism allows us to call antisemitism when we see it and react accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Bauber. Your constituents are grateful for the work you do on their behalf. All of us at CIJA would also like to thank MPPs Robin Martin and Will Bauma for the significant contributions they made to advancing this important policy. And of course, a big thank you to Ontario, the first province to adopt this universally accepted definition of anti-Jewish racism after the federal government did the same in 2019. Now to the UN. CIJA, our federation partners, along with B'nai B'rith and Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Centre, and the hundreds of thousands of Jews across Canada our organizations represent, were very disappointed to learn today that Canada voted in favour of a toxic anti-Israel motion at the UN. One of the many Israel-bashing resolutions that has just become part of the UN General Assembly meeting. Since 2004, starting with Prime Minister Martin, continuing with Prime Minister Harper, and followed by Prime Minister Trudeau, Canada has consistently rejected these motions for what they are: a cynical abuse of the UN by malign actors who are engaging in bad faith. But last year, and unfortunately repeated again today, Canada chose to vote in favour of one of these resolutions. We're disappointed because the vote not only contravenes Canadian principles on votes at the UN, it's also not aligned with the explanation of vote, nor is it consistent with Canadian foreign policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is linked below and which is very clear. And I quote, "Canada advocates a fair-minded approach and rejects one-sided resolutions and any politicization of the issues. Successive Canadian governments have been concerned about the polemical and repetitive nature of many of the numerous resolutions." That is in Canada's official foreign policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This vote represents a deviation, and that's why this is so disappointing. These resolutions not only move us further from peace, they also waste precious time and resources at the United Nations to the detriment of everyone who depends on this organization. It is important to note that Canada is and remains one of Israel's closest allies and friends, and regularly, including recently at the World Health Organization, rejects these attempts to demonize Israel in international fora. So in this case, we know what Canada is trying to do: firm support for a two-state solution, and that's a sentiment that we agree with. Two states for two peoples is our aspiration too. But we believe that there are far better ways to affirm this aspiration that would not conflict with principled Canadian policy, and we've communicated those options to the Prime Minister's office. You can read our statement, issued in partnership with B'nai B'rith and Friends of Simon Wiesenthal, below. And now, words of wisdom from Rabbi Daniel Mikelberg at Temple Israel in Ottawa. See you soon.
I love November because it means I can rely on one of my favorite Jewish delectable symbols, the Israeli Jaffa orange. It never ceases to amaze me that these precious fruits have traveled all the way from our homeland to supermarkets near and far. The toughness of the skin, the pure sweetness within, it speaks to the makeup of the Jewish spirit. But the symbolism goes much further. The Jaffa orange represents hope, too often intermingled with fear. To peel the fruit and access the sweet juice within is to appreciate that any challenge can be overcome. The production of the Jaffa orange demands hard labor, dedication, and precision. It should not be lost that this fruit is a product of the desert. To taste the sweetness is to fully appreciate the potential for promise. So let's go to the supermarket and stock up, and as we enjoy over the winter, let us live this essential lesson of the soul.